Hello and welcome to another Doctor's System 1 video, and today I'm doing a review of Doctor Who The Dark Universe by Guy Adams. Of course, I'll go through the packaging first. You've got the CD, the cover, which is Doctor Who Dark Universe by Guy Adams, and then you've got two of the main actors and actress people. Big Finish, you've got the Doctor there in the middle, you've got Ace, you've got Earth, you've got the 11, then you've got Gallifrey, and then you've got this sort of jungle sort of stuff. You've also got the sort of original 1980s sort of McCoy title design in that, because the covers are fortunately reversible. Originally it did have the sort of new Jodie Whittaker era logo, but I prefer having the era appropriate logos on my releases personally. Comes with two discs with the same sort of disc art, and then on the inside it's just got also available all these other 7th and 7th Doctor monthly range stuff, and then the sort of other stuff with the 11, which is pretty much Doom Coalition 1 through 4 with the 8th Doctor. And then on the spine you've got BBC, Doctor Who, Dark Universe, Big Finish, and then you've got 260 at the bottom, which basically means that it's the 260th release in the monthly range. Then on the back you've got the synopsis, the cast list, and the runtime, which is 120 minutes, so it's a 2-hour story, as well as telling you that it's also a 2020 release. I'm pretty sure it came back earlier in the year, sort of, it was either March or April's, maybe. I think maybe March. March's, or maybe even February and March, the monthly range release for that month, March or April, I can't remember, but yeah. More into the review now, where I'll be talking more so about the story. I won't really be sharing too many spoilers, but that's mainly just because, honestly, even though I've only just listened to the story, it's the type of story that I definitely feel like I need to re-listen to. I think, as well, saying that, I think it's the type of story that I'd only really recommend if you're more of an experienced Big Finish audio listener. Then again, it might have just been that I didn't not enjoy it, but found it a bit of a tricky one at times, because maybe it's because the last two Doctor Who audio stories I've listened to, or last couple, have all been just quick hour-long episode stories, and also two of them have been 10th Doctor stories, so they've been more sort of fast-paced, sort of more, for lack of a better term, sort of dumbed down, more sort of accessible sort of stories, as opposed to this one where you do get quite a lot of more higher concept stuff thrown at the wall. I honestly feel like Guy Adams had about 4 to 6 ideas, big ideas, that he just sort of threw at the wall, as it were. You know, the saying where sometimes writers, directors, creative people, you know, sometimes, you know, they almost throw poop at the window, you know, shit at the window, and see what sticks, as it were. And in some cases, I get that feeling with this. One thing before I forget that I will actually point out about the cover that I totally forgot to mention earlier is that the 7th Doctor is in his sort of more, he looks like he's more in a TV movie costume, which this cover and Warlock's Cross might be the only two that I can think of where we have the 7th Doctor in sort of more of a 1996 TV movie costume and that. So, which might interest some of you out there. I have no idea who, but someone might be interested by that fact. I could be wrong. There could be a lot more of the really early 7th Doctor stuff that had him in that costume. I haven't experienced, obviously, all of Big Finish's output, so yeah. One thing I will say that is the biggest strong point of this story is, I think the actor's name is Mark Bonnard, who plays the 11, absolutely smashes it out of the park with this one. And I think if you're someone who only knows the 11 by name, as it were, and has only but has listened to, say, I don't know, 50 to 100 Doctor Who audio stories at this point, anywhere between that number or that general area of number, as it were, and have heard of the 11 but not experienced the 11 at all. I think this is the Doctor Who story for you. I think that's the ideal sort of person for this story, and that I feel like Guy Adams very much intentionally wrote it as, what if someone had never only knew the 11 by name, but never knew who he actually was as a character and what his motivations were, and that. Because the 11 is kind of like the Rani or the Master, or the meddling monk, is a Time Lord gone bad, basically. But then again, most of them are anyway. But the point being that he has, unlike, say, the Doctor or most other Time Lords, pretty much all other Time Lords, even the Master does this, which is just regenerate from body to body to personality, whereas the 11 has the unique, distinctive characteristic of having all 11 regenerations and or personalities, mind, hearts, and soul, presumably, all bouncing about in one body, which makes him a very unique character. But in that respect, I will say that I can kind of understand why they've never done him, or I don't see him ever really appearing in the TV show anytime soon, unfortunately, because I think for general audiences, he would just come across like, oh, he's kind of just like the Master, that's it. Whereas actually, for your hardcore Doctor Who nerds like myself and you who's probably listening to this and are watching this even, there's that distinction of actually he's got split personality disorder pretty much. And also there's a line in this where the Doctor even says, well, compared to every other maniacal baddie / more so bad Time Lord that I've met or had to deal with, like the Master or the Rani, the 11 doesn't have restraint, and that's the big difference. And it's a really interesting sort of story with where it goes. I will be going into some spoilers now, actually, thinking about it, where, spoiler warning or spoiler alert. If you haven't seen this or listened to this story, stop watching this review. But if you have, feel free to listen to the rest of this. But basically, the 11 technically kind of wins, which is quite insane, really, thinking about it, because I feel like there's never been a Doctor Who story, at least that I've experienced, where the Master wins, Well, actually, that's a lie. I guess he wins in Series 3 when he's John Sim. But anyway, the point being that the 11 actually wins and stuff, and there's so much interesting sort of interplay with the 7th Doctor and the 11 of, like, them sort of sparring intellectually about, oh, well, you're no different from me, Doctor, you stop all these demigods and Daleks and Cybermen and that, but the difference is you've been punching, below your belt, as it were, punching the lower threats and that, so no one cares what you're doing, whereas I've gone on this global, well, not even global, but universal dominating, sort of scheme and that, and now that's why I'm, number one, and I'm number one, but I'm bored. I have nothing else to do now. I'm not entertained, and that's interesting as well, because it's like the Peter Capaldi war speech sort of thing, when he's saying to Bonnie, and once you've beaten all the bad guys and taken out all of the people who were the oppressors, then what? What are you going to do? Are you going to be the next dictator? Well, then there's going to be just another resistance, because the wheel always turns. Everything, whatever you think is the perfect world will eventually outgrow you and change and evolve and want to overthrow you, and you'll have to be demised, and then the next person will come along, and so on and so forth, and it kind of plays with that similar sort of idea, what if the 11 does win, and he kind of does, then what? Because he's kind of bored, because he's killed, the Cybermen and the Daleks and the Sontarans and this thing and that thing, and he has the Doctor as like a court jester, pretty much, What else? And again, I think Mark Bonnard absolutely smashes it out of the park, as in, like, in terms of his acting performance, and the fact that pretty much 95, if not 99% of this story very much pivots on his acting chops and his caliber as an actor and his ability to play all these different parts. You know, I'm pretty sure he is the only person who's playing all the different versions of 11. Like, they're not played by different actors, they're all just him, but he's having to play, you know, 4, who might be the more angry, aggressive one, 8, who's the only nice one, you know, the 11, who's the current version of him, who is physically in the room, and that. 1, who is the obviously oldest and most maybe wisest and maybe most mature, let's say, you know, and to be able to have these different ideas of these different characters in his head and keep track of all that, and then also give the vocal performance of like different personalities, is insane. You know, again, no pun intended, but it's mad to think that, you know. In terms of the audio quality, considering it's their 260th monthly range release, the audio quality is 10 out of 10. You can hear it very pitch perfectly. You know, the sound design's brilliant. The audio quality is obviously brilliant. That kind of really at this point goes without saying. You know, Sylvester McCoy is good in this. I do think he is very sort of, kind of comes across at times quite manipulative, or quite, well, not manipulative, but I'd say very sort of otherworldly, alien, no pun intended, but, you know, sort of keeping his cards close to his chest, I think, and it's quite interesting to see how Ace, considering where she is maybe in her timeline, I'm not sure where this is supposed to be set in her timeline, but it's very clear that she's getting very irritated, and there's a lot of conflict between the two of them, which I quite like, because it makes for a different dynamic that we don't often see with the Doctor and the Companion, which is that she very much feels like, you know, you are no better than the 11, you are consistently playing by your own rules and then saying that things are okay even though people have died because of you, you know. You know, that is another real interesting thing about how, you know, this plays with the idea that actually, even though the Doctor wins technically by the end of this story, he doesn't actually win and save everyone, you know. But then, as the Doctor points out, he says, you know, to Ace, but I can't control everything. Even though she usually complains that he is controlling everything, yet he points out that he can't. And yet, because he can't control everything, she's annoyed that people have died. Yet, she feels like he is controlling everything a lot of the time, which is quite weird. But then again, she is human, so, you know, her conflicting feelings and or lack of logic in that sense is understandable, and I'm surprised the Doctor didn't pick up on that. But I don't know, maybe that's just me reading a bit too much into it, I don't know. But Cardinal Lilystra is in this story, but she kind of feels quite weak, really. I think the thing is, I'm so used to Jacqueline Pearce, the actress playing the part of Cardinal Lilystra, that honestly, I can't picture anyone else playing that part now, and it's so unfortunate that she's passed away and is no longer with us, because that means that obviously we won't ever really get any more sort of that character played by her. I mean, we'll get more of that character, but played by different actresses. And that, because obviously they could just say, you know, oh, well, the person who played Cardinal Lilystra in this was her fourth regeneration, you know, and that. And then part 3, I do genuinely feel like part 3 very much dragged for me. Other than the 11, I genuinely like the Dark Universe. I do like the fact that this is one of the few, in recent memory that I can think of, one of the few monthly range releases that doesn't rely on, say, the Daleks, the Cybermen, you know, well, not the Daleks and Cybermen, but like at least sort of more, for lack of a better term, iconic or recognisable, you know, sort of monsters and baddies of, say, either the classic series or even the new series, you know, because I'm pretty sure Peter Davison's going to be fighting off some Slovene in some monthly range release at some point. And then, and then there's either the next story after this or the story before. There's one with the meddling monk, and then there's one with some clown characters from Greatest Show in the Galaxy, So again, I do feel like it's very refreshing, this story in particular, because it does feel a bit more special, a bit more unique, only really having more of an iconic sort of villain being maybe the 11, but other than that, the Dark Universe is something completely new, completely unique, and it's quite interesting. There are quite a few, for lack of a better term, dark twists and turns and that. I was really torn about what to give this as an audio story in terms of the rating. I think I'd give it higher on a rewatch, maybe, because I'd understand the story a bit better, or I'd at least hope so, but because of the fact that I haven't re-listened to it, I am going to just go with my gut feeling and give it an 8.5 out of 10. I don't think giving it an 8 was fair, because I feel like it's big and grandiose and epic, and Ace and Sophie Aldridge are really good, so's the Doctor, so's Mark Bonnard. He, again, smashes it out of the park. But part 3 is quite weak. Three's cliffhanger is really weak and boring. Part 1 and 2's cliffhanger are a lot stronger. But yeah, there are some things that make it not bad enough to be an 8, but not strong enough to be a 9. So I was really torn between an 8 and a 9, so I'm just going to go with my gut and give it an 8.3. I mean, 8.5 even. 8.5 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10. So yeah, thanks for watching. Please do comment, rate and subscribe.